us, this is the number of viable rooms that we need for there to be a business, not from the heart, a business, a viable business. And that's what these votes are about. It's about making this a viable business, and not making a viable business for this community. So it's one of the toughest things in business, I think, is to set your heart aside and go like, well, wait, how do I feel about whether or not this building's going to have an extra story or 17 more rooms? It doesn't matter. To be a viable business, it needs that extra floor. For those reasons, we need to pass these votes.
Thank you. Anybody else? And you were sworn in.
I was sworn in. Greg Rice, 511 Lucerne Avenue, Lucerne. I too want to echo my sentiments about what Mr. Gonzalez said about Hudson Holdings and how glad he is that they relocated from Chicago down to here to South Florida. I'm sure after the weather that we've been having up north, it looks like the last month or two, we're not probably as glad as they are. Anyhow, that they're in South Florida. But I want to remind people that seem to be hung up on numbers and height situation that over 20 years ago, or right at 20 years ago, there was a vote made to amend the city's charter. And in that charter at that time, we had 100-foot limits that were west of Dixie, 65-foot limits, height limits that were east of Dixie, which would incorporate into where the hotel district is. And as a result of that, now fast forward 20 years or so later, with all the economic booms and busts that have happened in South Florida in the last 20 years, I think we've got three new buildings that were built during that time period that were over 50 foot high. The building that I live in happens to be one of them. Mr. Romano's office building, I think, is the other one that's over 50 foot high, I'm sure it is. And probably that townhouse on Lake Avenue is also that bluish color. But anyhow, Lofts, yes, is over 50 foot high. That being said, I don't think the real fear is that Lake Worth is going to turn into South Beach or some of the other areas that have been mentioned and block out the sun, the breeze, or anything else. If anybody should be height sensitive in this town, it should be me. And I welcome the opportunity, and I don't believe in the mentality of, I'm in the lifeboat, I don't want anybody else to get in the lifeboat with me. It's too crowded, the noise, or whatever. We live in a city that needs economic stimulus. We live in a state that depends on tourism. It's one of the big economic drivers in this state. But yet, like we said, we have to send our guests outside the city to spend the biggest part of their vacation dollars in hotels and restaurants outside of our city. So I too urge you guys that it is a big decision tonight. And it's going to be a historic precedent that we might be setting here tonight. But please realize the importance of this decision, not just for in the next 10 years, but for the next 50 years, for 100 years even, that hotel has almost stood there. So thank you very much for your service on this board and some of the stuff you have to put in with after these meetings let out.
Thank you. Anybody else? Have you been sworn in?
No, I have not.
Would you like to be sworn in?
Yes, thank you.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes.
Yes. Laurel Robinson, 114 Ocean Breeze. I am in total support of this project and want it to go forward. However, as Mr. Rick Gonzalez said, everything needs a few tweaks, and I'm here just to offer mine. I think that the traffic flow for the entrance and egress for the garage is awkward and needs to be rethought. I don't think the large double exit ramp out onto First Avenue South is sensitive to the residential neighborhood. I think the loading docks and the dumpster placement interfere with the hotel entrance aesthetics. And I would think a very close look at crime prevention through environmental design, otherwise known as SEPTED, needs a good review. There are those consultants and experts that do SEPTED for their living, and I think that the entire site needs to be viewed that way. But having said that, once again, I am in total support. I like the setback to the new hotel. I think that was an ingenious way to get the needed rooms with giving them a view as well. I think it sets off the hotel, and I like maintaining the palm trees along Lake Avenue. We have palm trees up and down Lake Avenue. It's a signature of the city, and I like to see it continued all the way. Having said that, thank you for your service, and good luck.
Thank you. Anybody else? To be entered in the record.
Yes, I was sworn in.
Thank you.
Linda Mahoney, 131 North Gulfstream Road. Let there be no mistake, misunderstanding, or inaccurate representation. I love the historic Gulfstream Hotel. I would love to see it renovated and reopened and the underutilized parcel redeveloped, but I object to the plan as presented this evening as it violates the city charter as amended by ordinance 2012-30. I live 2 blocks or approximately 800 feet from the project. I can see the historic Gulfstream Hotel from my window, and I'll be able to see the new building if it's allowed to be built in violation of our charter. I walk in the area every day to do local errands and for exercise. The project as proposed will negatively impact my property and quality of life. The height proposed above what is allowed in our charter will permit additional guest rooms, which will require additional parking and staffing requirements, and staff requires parking as well. It'll create more dangerous traffic in the area around my home, from wrong-way drivers on my one-way streets, and speeders trying to make up for lost time when they're caught behind slower-moving vehicles or vehicles that are stuck in a queue. Tractor trailers and delivery trucks that cannot immediately access the loading docks will queue on North Gulfview in front of my home, as the Dollar General truck does now, on South Lakeside and Lake Avenue, creating noise and pollution. Lighting and noise from rooftops that will be used 65 and 80 plus feet up will diminish the quiet quality of life I now enjoy. In response to my question to Hudson Holdings at a Parrot Cove meeting in 2014, I was assured that there would be no unenclosed use on the roof. Noise and light violations will force me to make complaints to the city and PBSO, hoping for a response. Retail stores and commercial entrance on South Lakeside and a parking garage exit on First Avenue South will change blocks historically residential in nature and use and make them less desirable for me for recreational walking and biking, and more dangerous as vehicles pull up to and away from the new hotel entrance and vehicles turn into and exit the alley and the parking garage. I would love to see a project come that respects our charter amendment, that respects our history. I believe it can be done and still achieve economic viability. And I look forward to seeing a better plan than the plan in front of you this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Were you sworn in?
Yes, I was, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, board, for your time tonight, and for everybody here and their time. My name is Joanne Golden, I live at 502 North Palmway. We all want the Gulfstream Hotel redone. We've been waiting a long time for it to be redone. Hudson Holdings bought it in 2014, and nothing's been done on it as yet. There's an expression, hell-bent for election. These approvals go against the charter amendment voted on in 2013 that allows for a 45-foot height restriction. And these plans come fast and furious, and you're supposed to pass it with very limited oversight. The lack of information, the time to absorb these plans, variances, etc., does not promote economic sustainability. We have a sea level rising, and we have climate change, and I don't know if the developers have noticed the effects of climate change. Flooding is a problem. Traffic is a problem already. We're going to have more trains. We're going to have backups. I don't think this has been really thought through, even though we're going to have some sort of a traffic evaluation when we have the new trains and we have backups already all the way down Lake Avenue, and it's in season right now. The lack of pedestrian safety and all of these effects will harm the residents beyond any value they receive. The Gulfstream and lot need to be restored to its historic eminence, and any new construction should be required to comply with the charter amendment that was passed by the voters. Sustainability of the building is not as important as sustainability of our residents and our unique city. The other iconic hotels that are alluded to this evening are on much, much larger pieces of property. And they're not on a major thoroughfare like ours. Now, saying that this was not a classy hotel, but could be an assisted living or student housing, was really something I haven't heard before. And if you can't, and I also heard that if you can't build the annex, the restoration of the Gulfstream would be impossible. That can't be the case. Somebody bought it and said they were going to restore it. I'd also like to know, I just have a question about the relationship of the height of the buildings to the street width, which could be talked about architecturally speaking, and I haven't heard anything about it, because the streets are narrow and the buildings are high, and I haven't heard of anything that works well with that configuration. So thank you very much for your time. I hope we do not pass this. We have a charter amendment of 45 feet, and I'm sure they can come up with a plan that would fit in to what the residents voted for. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have been sworn. Richard Durcio, 720 South Palm Way. This really does need to be done. I know a lot of people have been talking about the height restrictions and the vote back in 2012, but if I may be so familiar, referred he was buying, because I don't know your last name. I stood here and beautifully articulated to the City Commission why, along with staff, that this plan and this design was well within our long-term comprehensive plan, and how the city was compelled to offer them the variance, or to give them the variance to have that height for that secondary building. The city attorney ad nauseum has answered this question, saying it's really been trumped by what goes on in Tallahassee. I'm actually glad that a lawsuit was brought against the city, because maybe now the judge will settle it all once and for all. We won't have to hear this anymore. I think that maybe if you can just be done with this, your job tonight is to approve the design aspects of this. It's already been approved as far as the height aspects go, and the variance has been given along with staff. And staff did agree, of course, with your assertion. I do hope you were in court as well to articulate it the way you did.
I think he hopes not. I'm not.
I think I hope you're there. This is going to be a wonderful thing, and it's really going to bring. I agree with what Greg said as well. We need places to put people in our city, to bring our downtown. We have a lot of empty storefronts here. We can fill up restaurants, we can fill up shops, and we can do this sort of thing. If you have 174 room nights, you're at 80 or 90% capacity, that's going to bring a lot of business to the city. Thank you, and thank you for your time and your efforts. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else? I have a letter that was emailed David Savage at 432 South J Street, unable to be here. I have, and he says, I have the opportunity to look at the plans for the Gulfstream project and would like to share a couple of my thoughts. I am pleasantly surprised with the overall project as presented. I believe the architectural solutions for the annex and parking structures are, for the most part, excellent. I do take exception with the plan to have retail space in the parking structure on Lakeside Drive. I believe pedestrian access retail is truly a plus for this project, but logic suggests any retail should be on Lake Avenue, not around the corner and down the block on Lakeside Drive. Could the plans be changed to incorporate the retail element into the annex on Lake Avenue face and add more needed parking in the place of retail, now designated as in the parking structure? I believe the south face of the parking structure would benefit from more thought on the aesthetics presented to the neighbors. Thanks for your opportunity to state my views. Anybody else want to opine? Please.
There are two more emails to read in record, two in your hands. I can read this for you.
Please. Were you sworn in? Would you like to
Just a comment.
comment?
Anthony Marauder, 327 North Lakeside Drive. I live about 3 blocks away from the Gulfstream. I definitely want to see it revitalized and come back. A couple things I'm not in fear of my safety. I walk by it all the time. I don't think that's going to change too much. I'm also not a hotelier, so I don't know what the magic number is, so I'm not going to tell you what I think these gentlemen can do. That's not my business. Also, I have a bit of a personal problem. My fiance has said we can only get married when the Gulfstream is done, because she wants to have it there, so I need you guys to help me lock this up and get this approved. So thanks for your service, guys. I appreciate it.
Would you like, anybody else want to speak? Otherwise, we'll hear 2 letters of email, and that should do us.
Okay, the first email is from Robert Lipa. It was received on February the 16th, and it was to the mayor and the commission as well as the city manager, and request to be read to the Historic Resource Preservation Board. Hello all, I am unable to attend tomorrow's meeting regarding the restoration in addition to the historic Gulfstream Hotel. However, I do want all of you to know that I am in favor of the construction of additional rooms at the current heights proposed. I am saddened that there is a frivolous lawsuit on the project and hope that it is dealt with quickly and put behind the progress we need to keep our city viable and vibrant. Mr. Lipa, 728 North Lakeside Drive. Second one was received February 17th. It's from Frederick Mickner, and it was to our preservation coordinator, Ms. Sunny. I am unfortunately not able to attend this evening's proposal of the Gulfstream redevelopment project, but wanted to submit my support by email. I'm writing solely as an almost 18-year homeowner in Lake Worth. However, I'm also a historic preservation professional with significant involvement at the local, state, and national level. I have reviewed the preliminary plans and believe the size, scale, mass, and architectural elements are compatible with the Gulfstream, the surrounding properties, and the historic district at large. I strongly encourage this board to unanimously approve this project and support its success. Preservation is not about freezing buildings in time, but providing guidance for a thoughtful balance of historic structures and related new construction that lead to viable and operational buildings.
All right. That concludes our public input. Well,
For all of it, or
yes.
for agenda item number 1?
It was disappointing that most of the comments did not specifically address the items. It wasn't disappointing. I'm glad to hear all the comments. I take that back. It was disappointing that there were not more comments directed to the specific items that we're going to approve or disapprove.
You may afford the public reading. It's up to the pleasure of the board, but as you get to the specific items you want to discuss as an approval, you may request additional specific public input on those actual items. That's what we were intended originally, and we've kind of straight away.
In deference to the public that was here.
Are we
I
looking
think,
for board discussion now?
I think we're ready for maybe a 3-minute break. So let's come back at 9 o'clock. And we hopefully will address